slightly delayed weekly chairman's update. I didn't film this last week on the normal schedule because I was back in Atlanta at the Republican National Committee, RNC, quarterly meeting, and more about that in a minute. But I want to update you on what's been going on over the past week here in Washington, in our Washington. Of course, last week, the current governor, Bob Ferguson, issued his formal response to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi's letter demanding that he commit to disassemblation enforcement law. As we expected, Ferguson's response was petulant and defiant, and he will not bend the knee, he said, using a term from Game of Thrones to the federal government. Well, the problem is, Mr. Governor, this isn't a TV show about dragons, this is real life. And in real life, the U.S. Constitution prevails in matters of law. And our state constitution and our state law acknowledges U.S. Constitution and federal law as the highest law of the land. And in matters of immigration law enforcement, the federal law is law. And state law and executive orders from the governor and other things are subordinate to it. Mr. Ferguson's position, defiant, that he will not cooperate with federal immigration law, that he will not honor the federal system, is unlawful. It's unconstitutional, and at the federal level, at least, it's illegal. I think at his core, the current governor knows this. That's why his responses, his press conferences have been so jittery and nervous, his voice breaking, his normal monotone sounding uneasy, because I think at his core he knows his position is untenable. He cannot defy the power of law in this country. We're a nation of laws, not of men who don't want to bend the knee. So the governor's in trouble with that. As Bondi pointed out in her initial letter, the federal government may do several things in response to our governor's petulant defiance. They can federal money. They can hold back money for various budget items. They can initiate civil lawsuits against the state or against local jurisdictions that are not following immigration law, not upholding the law. And she reserved the right to initiate criminal lawsuits, criminal prosecutions against individual politicians who act unlawfully. Clearly, our current governor is very nervous about that part. His response that he issued last week was full of kind of victims rhetoric, that he's being threatened and bullied by the U.S. Attorney General. Ironic a bit, since at the same time, Washington State Court was considering a ridiculous criminal case against Tim Hazelo, the former chairman of the Island County Republican Party, who, as many of you know, was arrested last year in a little flap over wearing a COVID mask or not wearing one. Tim is a trained election observer, and he was observing the ballot counts last November after the general election at the auditor's office out there in Whidbey Island in Island County. And the auditor and her staff there told him he had to wear a COVID mask while he was watching the ballots being counted. Now, the COVID is no longer a thing. All of the previous governor's mandates and edicts and authoritarian hogwash have all timed out. They're all expired. There is nothing requiring people to wear COVID mask places, but they did this, I think, in part just to sort of harass Tim, because he's a known conservative guy, but he was trained and was able to be an election observer. And so they harassed him, I believe. It was all kind of trumped up pardon the pun, situation out there. The county prosecutor, rather than exercising wisdom and discernment, decided to go whole hog and prosecute Hazelo for basically a felony trespassing type beef, some other technical items, but essentially it was a trespassing case. Charged Tim with a felony and got a prosecution out of it. It was very weird case. But what happened last week was the sentencing, and that was happening through last week. It actually just ended up happening today, the final sentencing hearing. The good news is Hazelo was not given any jail time, although that could have happened. He was given a mandatory community service requirement and a fine, not a great amount, a few $100s, maybe all in around $700 or $800 in fines and fees. But troublingly, because even though he didn't get any jail time, it was technically a felony that he was convicted of for trespassing and not wearing a COVID mask. He does have to surrender DNA to the court, and at least for a little while, he loses his gun rights. And these things are going to be the grounds for an appeal of the whole circus, of the conviction in the first place, of the sentence that he did get. I was able to text message back and forth a little bit with Tim. He's relieved he doesn't have to go to jail. That's a good thing. And I think there's enough outrage in this ridiculous prosecution of him for not wearing a COVID mask that I think he will be able to make an interesting appeal. And he's already committed that he plans to do it. His lawyers, who include the Silent Majority Foundation and some other law firms that you know in our state that are good constitutionalists, plan to appeal. And I think they're going to be able to make a principled appeal out of this, that even though Tim didn't get any jail time, the fact that he's had to go through this process is unwarranted, and I believe unconstitutional, violation of his rights. So that case will go on favorable terms, I think, to Tim, who's certainly a friend of the WGOP. And lastly, I want to say that while I was in Atlanta last week at the RNC meeting, I was able to speak for a few minutes with Vice President J.D. Vance. Both I and the National Committee man and National Committee woman got a short photo op with the Vice President, and I had the chance to speak with him for a few minutes. And I impressed on him all that's going on here in Washington State. We talked for a moment about our governor's very foolish defense, if you call it that, of sanctuary state policies and his disregard for the crime that's associated with his position defending illegal aliens in the state, and how that connects to human sex trafficking, the pimps and the traffickers who bring kids up here from Central and South America to live a life of sex slavery. It's horrible. And that Ferguson basically enables this, as well as taking a soft touch on gangbangers and drug dealers and other bad sort. We talked for a few minutes about our initiative to require voter ID, and the Vice President certainly warmed to that idea, understood it well and the importance of it in rebuilding confidence in election systems. And we talked about some of the federal money in this matter of whether federal projects will be funded here in Washington because of the governor's childish and petulant behavior. And the Vice President understood that and understands that there are some good projects that the federal government is helping fund here in Washington, and agreed he would do what he could to try to help us get those dollars directed in a good way toward projects that help infrastructure and other essential bits of what government does when it does things right. So it was a very encouraging meeting with Vice President Vance. He's an impressive guy. That's what's going to be going on this week. I will do another chairman update later this week to try to catch us up on schedule. But there's a lot going on this summer. As I've said all along, it's been very, very busy, unusually busy. And we're doing a lot here in our Washington to fix what's broken. I'll talk to you again soon. Until that time, be well and stay strong.